月24号的清晨，乌克兰的时间4点15分的时候，俄罗斯开战。许多人没有注意到的是，2月23号到2月24号，俄罗斯下议院的议长沃洛金访问了古巴，目的是什么？他等于是到美国的后院告诉他，如果你可以在基辅部署飞弹，把北约组织东扩到这里，那不好意思，我也可以在古巴对你做相同的事情。让我们来看这场访问跟他抑郁的1962年古巴危机的重现。
Вячеслав Володин прибыл в Гавану. Председатель Государственной Думы находится на Кубе с официальным визитом. Запланирована, в частности, встреча Вячеслава Володина с председателем Национальной ассамблеи народной власти и Государственного совета Республики Куба. Они обсудят вопросы сотрудничества между нашими странами, а также дальнейшее развитие межпарламентского диалога.
俄罗斯2月24号对乌克兰发动军事攻击，俄国下议院议长沃洛金23号来到古巴进行正式访问，时间和地点都颇令人玩味。沃洛金在开战前夕来到美国后院，提到古巴遭美国制裁超过60年，当时的苏联大力相助，但苏联解体后，古巴孤立无援，现在该强化俄古关系，让美国常常芒刺在背的威胁不言可喻。沃洛金这番话也不免让人联想到古巴飞弹危机，美国也曾数度计划攻击古巴，当时古巴寻求苏联支援防卫，最终苏联削弱美国核武的部署优势。如今的俄国是否如法炮制？军援顿内茨克和卢甘斯克以弱化美国，重建国际秩序。
Pretty much immediately following the Allied victory in World War II, the United States and Soviet Union became bitter enemies, kicking off a decades-long struggle for global influence known as the Cold War. Espionage and intelligence were at the center of this conflict, most crucially surrounding the mutual buildup of nuclear arsenals capable of unprecedented levels of destruction.
从20世纪跨到21世纪，似曾相识的东西强权竞争。冷战时期，以美国为首的资本主义国家对上以苏联为首的社会主义共产党执政国家，展开从经济、意识形态、政治体系到军武实力的竞赛。来到现今，美国依旧是居高临下，俄罗斯延续解体的苏联，急于重振雄风。
The Cuban Missile Crisis was the closest the world has ever come to nuclear apocalypse. An ever-escalating arms race had led to the deployment of Soviet missiles in Cuba, which were now prepped and ready to fire on Washington, New York, and almost the entire eastern seaboard. An invasion force of over 120,000 soldiers gathered on the shores of Florida, and almost 3,000 American nuclear weapons were locked onto targets across the Soviet Union. The defining event of the Cold War, it would see the world's leading superpowers fight in a dangerous battle for nuclear superiority, just 90 miles from the American coast. For 13 days in October 1962, American President John F. Kennedy and Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev would engage in a battle of wills, where one wrong move could lead to global destruction.
1962年10月14号，美国拍到古巴疑似新建飞弹基地的照片，开启历时13天的政治和军事对峙危机。16号，甘乃迪获中情局简报，得知苏联利用古巴作为核弹基地威胁美国。经过6天思索和权衡，22号，甘乃迪宣布了非军事回应的选项。
Good evening, my fellow citizens. This government, as promised, has maintained the closest surveillance of the Soviet military buildup on the island of Cuba. Within the past week, unmistakable evidence has established the fact that a series of offensive missile sites is now in preparation on that imprisoned island. The purpose of these bases can be none other than to provide a nuclear strike capability against the Western Hemisphere. I have directed that the following initial steps be taken immediately. First, to halt this offensive buildup, a strict quarantine on all offensive military equipment under shipment to Cuba.
But on the evening of October 26th, the first signs of a diplomatic solution would appear. Kennedy would receive an unexpected letter from Khrushchev outlining the potential terms of a deal. If the United States ended the blockade and promised not to invade Cuba, then Khrushchev would be willing to withdraw his troops. In exchange for the removal of the missiles, the United States would be willing to make a pledge not to invade Cuba. The removal of the Jupiter missiles in Turkey was also part of the deal, but this would have to remain a secret to avoid offending America's NATO allies. Khrushchev would just have to trust that the president would stick to his word. This was Kennedy's last hope. If the deal was rejected, he would have no choice but to go to war.
Each great power have their obligation to protect all their allies. They're far or close, they're important or they're not important. Khrushchev decided to send missiles there at the diplomatic signal. Don't invade Cuba, we're serious.
As night came on October 27th, no one knew what the next day would hold. The power to end the crisis now lay with Khrushchev. He could either swallow his pride and accept Kennedy's terms, or push for further concessions and risk provoking war. And that morning, he would broadcast his acceptance of the deal on Radio Moscow, bringing an end to the crisis.
冷战时期的美苏领导人最终选择以外交途径结束危机，避免引发可能导致相互毁灭的战争。当年的古巴飞弹危机，换上现今的乌克兰危机。前美国驻苏联大使马特洛克撰文指出，拜登清楚表明，如果俄罗斯入侵乌克兰，美国不会出兵到乌克兰参战。那为什么要派遣美军到欧洲？难道只是为了向国会的鹰派展现拜登对抗俄国的强硬态度吗？拜登表示，派兵只是为协防北约盟友，无论这场乌俄战事如何画下句点，不得北约其门而入的乌克兰已成最大牺牲者。